Yo, what's good? I have five big questions for the Detroit Pistons heading into training camp that I want to discuss in today's video. But before I do, this video is being brought to you by Bridges and Stone's Family and Relationship Care. If someone you know and care for is struggling with their mental health or relationships, go to bridgesandstones.com and contact them for your free consultation today. One brave act today can create a better tomorrow. Remember, none of us make it alone. The link is in the description box below. You know, I want to do this video because it's been a long summer. It's been a mad long summer. I've been traveling, a whole bunch of stuff. Became a soccer dad officially. You know, I'm living my best life, right? And I wanted to have a little breather between when the season started. But as the season is getting ready to start, I'm keeping track of some of the comments still being made on some of the videos that I've done from earlier this off season, and some of the comments that are still going on around the team, it just seems like people are still just kind of like throwing ideas on the wall and just really not sure what to expect from this team. And so I wanted to do kind of not a deep dive, but just a shallow kind of observation of what I believe five main questions are for this Detroit Pistons roster going into this year's training camp. The first one that I want to start off with, and this is probably the most significant. I'm actually going to do number one down to number five. So number one is probably the biggest question mark that needs to be answered in this training camp. Can Jaden Ivey win the starting shooting guard position outright? Not barely, but outright. Can he outplay Tim Hardaway Jr. in every capacity, in every way, to justify him having that starting role coming out of training camp? And this is essential because, look, we all understand how talented he is. But the major questions that we have had is, one, what is his real position, his outlook position for playing in the NBA? And I think that this has been confusing to a lot of, casual fans and the like, because they don't really understand how the NBA develops young players. One of the significant things that people don't understand is that when you have a talented shooting guard who's good at catching and shooting, playing off the ball, in order to kind of super speed up his development for playmaking and facilitating as a secondary playmaker or even a future primary playmaker, is by putting him at point guard. They've done this with Devin Booker. They did this with D. Wade. They did this with Kobe Bryant. They did this with T-Mac. They did this with Bradley Beal. They've done this with pretty much every elite shooting guard ever. I can list Michael Jordan. I can keep going back further and further and further. They always do this. Early in the career of a young, talented shooting guard, they will delay necessarily bringing in a high-level point guard so that they have an opportunity to allow them a lot of reps at point guard and sacrifice wins in the process. Now, this is already assumed they're going to be high turnover, inefficient, and have to go through some growing pains along the way. But I think what a lot of casual fans interpreted this as is he's a point guard. Well, he was never a point guard. He wasn't a point guard at Purdue. He wasn't a point guard in high school. He was a shooting guard all the way through. And now they see him at point guard, and they actually think that he was supposed to be a point guard because he looked, really good in moments. That was never the long-term intention for him, which plays into why people have been confused, because then you see Cade Cunningham coming in and they're like, well, hey, who's the real point guard? And should he just be a point guard off the bench? No. He is a shooting guard. Even if he leaves the Detroit Pistons, he is not going to play point guard for someone else. No one else is bringing him in to be a point guard. So he has to show that he can become a starting level NBA shooting guard. Now, here's the thing. Malik Beasley at his best is an off-the-bench shooting guard. He should not ever be a starting shooting guard. He was probably one of the greatest reasons for the Milwaukee Bucks' depleted defense. He could not stop anybody on the perimeter. He can shoot, but he can't stop anybody, right? Think Marcus Thornton. Think some of the I forget his name for the Boston Celtics back in the day. The shorter, high volume Eddie House type, right? He is a volume 3-point shooter. That's it. Microwave 3-point shooter. He's not a defender. He's not a playmaker. He's not a facilitator. He's not who you want as your starting shooting guard. He should never be that. Things have gone really wrong if he is, which they did for the Milwaukee Bucks last season. And then you have Tim Hardaway Jr. Every stop he's been in, from Atlanta to New York to Dallas, he has consistently been a shooting guard that they have tried out as a starter, only to be left wanting and disappointed and then moving him to the bench. He is an off-the-bench scoring shooting guard. He is not an NBA starting, especially playoff caliber shooting guard. That it just is what it is. He's going to have a long career. He's going to, score a lot of points. He's going to get paid, but he's not your starter. If Jaden Ivey cannot beat out Tim Hardaway Jr. and Malik Beasley for that starting shooting guard position, I expect this team to move on from him. I expect them to package him in a trade and enter in the VJ Edgecombe, NBA draft potential for next summer, which I would be excited about no matter what. But it's to say that is the first question that needs to be answered. Can Jaden Ivey win that starting shooting guard position outright? He has the talent to do it. We need to see it. The second question is, will Jaylen Duren commit to defense? This is something that we saw a little bit with Team USA, where they began to hold him accountable and say, look, man, at this level, what we do is we lock up. We play defense. And I'm sure he learned a lot, seeing great players around him commit themselves on that side of the ball, not just because they're talented defensively, but because they want to win and they understand what winning is. And hopefully that has rubbed off on Jaylen Duren. I know we all want to see, the screen setting, the rolling, the scoring, the passing, and stuff like that. You know what? Focus on defense. If he can get to average to above average defensively with his wingspan, his physicality, his rebounding ability, he is going to immediately catapult himself into the upper echelon of the center position, which I believe we all believe he can do. Remember, he came into the NBA as one of the youngest players in the league, if not the youngest, meaning that his learning curve is still pretty steep. He has a ways to go. But in year 3, when he's going to be eligible for an extension, you want to see him make this step to being a reliable defensive center. The next question, can JB Bickerstaff find continuity between Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey? This is similar to number 1, but in number 1, it's about Jaden Ivey. Can you beat those guys out? Can you knock down shots consistently? Can you defend better than those two who are not known for defense at all? Can you play make and be reliable to be efficient? Not turning the ball over, right? Getting that floater game down. Getting out in transition better than those guys can. You have the tools, do it. But JB Bickerstaff has to create the scheme. And that is going to be a major point of emphasis for JB Bickerstaff's success for this upcoming season. Can he get those two to work? If he gets those two to work together, and they are both 20-plus point per game scorers, which they both completely have the ability to be, this season will be a success no matter what the wins outcome. I mean, I'm assuming if those two are playing well together, it will be a 30-plus win season. They will see it as a success, a big step forward, a bounce back from last year. Number 4, has Ausar Thompson gotten his shooting improved enough to solidify cementing his place in the starting lineup? Look, I believe Ausar Thompson is a central component of this team, a piece of the core for the future. He is something that you really can't teach. You can't teach that level of athleticism, that natural strength, his ability to defend and lock down great players, his motor, his intensity, that size and length, his quickness, his anticipation. He has so many skills outside of shooting, right? You really have to think Andre Iguodala, right? One of those guys who has the ability to affect the game in profound ways, even if it's not shooting. The game is played in many other ways without shooting. And I won't even say that Ausar Thompson can't shoot. He did not shoot it well. That's clear. But for him to be a high-level impact player, and I mean all-star, high-level, all-team defense, 15-year career, Sean Marion, the Matrix type, all he needs is a consistent, reliable jump shot. Can you knock down a high percentage in those corner threes? Can you get me 35% corner threes? Can you get me 30% to 35% on catch and shoot? I don't need you to take them off the dribble. I don't need you to do any of that stuff off the bounce. I think you're going to contribute enough in transition, offensive rebounds, pick and roll as a lob threat, cutting off the ball, getting dump offs, slashing straight line drives to the basket, using your athleticism and touch around the rim, even a little floater, pull up jump shot. He's going to get 10 to 15 points a game at least doing those things that he does second nature, which is a huge contribution because he doesn't need the ball in his hands necessarily to be maximally effective. He doesn't need to be like Ivey and Cunningham, who need to dribble the ball and get themselves warmed up. Ausar can move off the ball, fly up and down the court, and he's going to eat. He can get you 15 points, 14 to 15 points a game just off those things. If he's knocking down a jump shot, he immediately gets up to about 18 points a game, and he looks completely different. He begins to look like a future all-star. He begins to look like this guy can be a part of a championship contending team. The last thing, number 5, is can Cade Cunningham step into that team leader role? Can he fully step forward and demand and say, this is my team. Get on my back, follow me. I'm going to tell you where to be. I can look at Jaden Ivey and say, no, give me the ball. The situation in the game right now, this is me. I'm going to make this happen. I don't care if I make it, miss it, turnover. I don't care. It's my ball. I'm that guy. I need you to let me set the table. I need you to trust me. That's my role. And he needs to be able to communicate that and demand that on this team, because at that level, whenever you play at any level of any type of competitive sport, it is your confidence that exudes confidence from others. You have to be able to step in and say, this is my role, this is what I'm doing, jump on my back. And I have that energy. I have that energy. When you look at me, I'm telling you, I've got this. That's what sells it. That's what allows somebody to trust you. He cannot be passive. He cannot allow Ivy to just dribble the air out the ball and turn it over and do random stuff. He needs to solidify that he is the number one option. He is the table setter. He is the facilitator. He is the one who's going to get them into their offense, and they will run through him off of him. And if he can do that, I think he's going to have another great season. But he needs to step into that leadership role. But these are the 5 main things. Can Jaden Ivey win that starting shooting guard position outright? Will Jaylen Duren commit to defense? Can JB Bickerstaff create continuity between Cade and Ivy? Has Ausar gotten his jump shooting together? And will Cade Cunningham step forward as a leader? As always, I want to know what you all think. If you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and I'm going to holler at y'all next time. Peace.